Today I just wanted to show you guys one of the more difficult items for us to process and recycle, and that is forklifts. In particular, forklift counterweights, because they're extremely heavy, extremely thick, and they're made of cast iron. So let me show you some of the forklifts we're currently processing, and then I'll show you guys an entire clip of us torching up a counterweight. So these are a couple good examples of forklifts that we are currently processing. We received these in all different shapes and sizes. For example, this top one actually came from another recycling yard, and that's why it's not complete. But the bottom one came to us complete minus the battery. But basically, once we receive the forklifts, we drain all the fluids out of them. Then we usually take our mobile shear and we cut off anything that it can handle. So we'll cut the hoods off over the engine, the steering columns, the roll cages, all that stuff. And then once it's down to basically the more difficult items to process, we will process it with a torch. And so if we take a look at this one that is about halfway cut up, you can see the mass right here laying next to it. And essentially we just cut it every 2 to 3 feet. That way it's prepared and ready to go to the steel mill. And then the frame of the forklift itself, we do the same thing. And so sometimes if they're electric, they'll have an electric motor, or if they're gasoline or propane or diesel, we will pull the engines out separately. We sometimes can do that with the shear, sometimes we have to cut them free with the torch. And then you can see this would have been the hydraulic tank on the side of this forklift, and you can see we took our shear and we pinched that after we drained it. The reason we do that is just to get any of the residual oil that's left in there. And then of course, anytime you're torching, if you've got flammable liquids, they're going to catch on fire, and we just don't want, you know, something to blow up or to get out of control. Also, we'll take the torch and we'll cut the lug nuts off the tires. Those can't go to the steel mill. But that's pretty much all there is to it on the forklifts themselves. We just cut them down until they're in small pieces. And then you're left with the counterweights. And the counterweights are much more difficult to process. You can see he's got this one about halfway done. And typically speaking, we'll always try to cut the path of least resistance. So it's a lot easier to cut through, you know, 4 inches thick instead of trying to cut through this piece, which is maybe 8 or 10 inches thick. And then once we get it down into small chunks like that, it'll be ready to head to the steel mill as well. But this big counterweight right here is the one I'm getting ready to show you, him cutting all the way up. And you can see how thick he has to cut through in a lot of places. Same thing on this one, he tries to cut in the corners and in the least thick sections, just so we have to do less cutting. And then you can just see the amount of slag all over the ground. Also, the other thing we have to be very careful is whenever we're cutting these, not to have anything that is flammable close by, because it will shoot the slag for, you know, 20 or 30 feet away. And then also we just have to make sure that we're cautious of the wood line and never aim towards the woods when we're cutting. But that's pretty much it. Let me show you guys him actually cutting this counterweight up. Well, here's a really good reason of why we have to be extra careful when we're torching those. You see this pile was pretty far away from where he was actually cutting, and it still caught a little bit of wood and trash on fire. So you can really see how thick that material is and how much slag is just puddled up underneath where he was cutting. These are some of the most difficult items for us to cut here on the scrapyard. He makes it look like easy work, but if I ever try to do it, I can't even barely get it started. Well guys, that's pretty much it for today. I just wanted to show you one of the more difficult items for us to process here on the scrapyard. Even though they're difficult, we still love to do it because we want to make sure every little bit of metal out there gets recycled. So if you have something that you think is going to be difficult to recycle, make sure you check with your local scrapyard to see if they can handle it. But as always guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.